I love arcade racers. They are usually very easy to pick up and play, along with providing that fantasy of being in high-speed races. Grid Legends looked like a promising game that I saw very little marketing for. I played the 2019 entry, and while I enjoyed it, it did have a fair amount of flaws, and it's not known as one of the best in the community. But Legends looked a lot better. One of the biggest draws to it was the story-focused campaign mode. Usually we get a career mode of sorts with various racing challenges, unlocks, and events to do, and Legends also provides that on top of a story campaign. When it comes to the minute-to-minute racing, it feels really good. Plus there is a really cool slow motion feature that can be used to correct a wrong move. There's plenty of modes both online and off, and today I want to highlight why you should give this a try. Grid Legends has solid minute-to-minute racing. The controls were easy to pick up and get into. Something I really like is a gameplay element that allows you to correct a wrong move. The rewind mechanic allows you to see the action in reverse and find the best time to resume it. I know this is not the first time that this has been used in a game, but I think it's used well here. Plus it's really cool while in single player as you really take in the spectacle of a bad move, along with it being very useful to make those corrections. Something I want to make note of is that there's a bunch of racing options that you can tweak to adjust the experience and personalize it for you. For example, you can opt to add or take away many of the realism elements that this game has, and then lean even more into an arcade racer. Grid Legends does have a bit of a mix of an arcade and sim-like feel to it, depending on what elements you have on, and as such it will lean more in one of those directions for you. Some of the options are changing how the damage to your car works, along with turning on and off all the assists the game can provide. Grid Legends rides that line well of being accessible, while also providing options to essentially try and please the most players. While I really enjoy arcade racing games, I would never say that I'm good at them, and I'm even worse at sim-like experiences. So I like how the options allow me, someone with a low skill level, to jump into the game and get their feet wet, and then as I slowly get better in some of the areas, I could add on more realism elements. Now let's get into some of the modes. The narrative campaign was a huge surprise. It is really impressive what they were able to deliver on from the presentation and style. The story is shown like a documentary, complete with the behind-the-scenes type discussions and interviews with the characters. The narrative is centered around Seneca. You'll be racing for them, and the entire narrative is an underdog story, and you'll find yourself rooting for them to win. Much of that narrative is all done through the live action. Yes, it is cheesy and over the top in some of the delivery, but it always manages to entertain. Some of it is unintentionally funny, and I did find myself getting wrapped up in some of the drama. Will you get emotionally invested in it? No, but you will be constantly entertained from what is presented. Now gameplay wise for the campaign, it allows the player to get a taste of a variety of races. The campaign is about 5 or so hours long, and this is a great selling point for this title. Now outside of the campaign, there are other single player options. There is the career mode, and here you will complete in races consisting of normal races, time trials, eliminations, boost races, and a few others. Here you will earn new cars to drive and upgrades for them. The track variation is good as well, with a solid number of tracks along with a lot of tweaks that are made to them, like the time of day along with what weather you'll race through. The career can also be played in 2-player online co-op. There is online multiplayer as well. One nice option is allowing other players to join your career races. Now you need to contend with a human player. This helps to spice up the races, and you can turn this on and off if you want a more traditional single-player career. There are more traditional online options to select as well as you race against other players. Something that deserves a lot of praise is the race creator. You don't really make tracks, but can toy around with a huge amount of settings for each of the tracks. This was a nice surprise and allows for a ton of replay value. 2020 had its fair share of underrated and overlooked games. There were many titles that got little to no marketing pushes from their big publisher. Now I can completely understand not wanting to overdo it in the marketing department. Depending on the property, some just sell themselves. Like look at all the money that Activision dumps into Call of Duty marketing each year. The people that buy and play it each year are probably going to do that without any input from the marketing, so that is an example of being a good place to cut back. But other titles honestly could use a nice push to get noticed, and at the same time they need to be done well. Final Fantasy Stranger of Paradise was a game released that year that while it did have a modest marketing push, I really couldn't get a good read on the title at all. The marketing honestly didn't do it any favors. Once I played it, I saw how it had a lot of good going for it. So that's an example of marketing your target but not doing it well, and especially for an underrated title for that year. But this brings us back to Grid Legends. This must have been one of the weakest marketing offerings that year from a big publisher. The reason I say this is that I found out that it came out weeks after it launched. There wasn't that usual splash the week a new game comes out, especially from a big studio. Now maybe EA had good reason to do this, potentially thinking they had a dud on their hands, and wanted to hide the fact or something. But that wasn't even the case, as I spent most of this video saying how good this game actually is. This is also not the first time that EA did this with one of their racing games. Need for Speed Heat released in the fall of 2019, and there were many players that honestly had no idea that this even came out until weeks later. Again, this was really odd considering that this is a long-running racing series from EA, and they treated it, at least from the marketing side of things, like it wasn't that important or really worth pushing out there. Now yes, the fall is a crowded time for big games, but Need for Speed is a huge franchise when it comes to racing. My point with all of this is that it shows a pattern with EA and whoever is running the marketing for their racing games. As a consumer, it comes across like they just don't care about the games they are making. This is the exact opposite in what is presented in the actual game, because both Heat and Grid Legends feel like quality developed titles by good teams. Then there is one more thing to add on to this. EA bought the Codemasters racing developers, so now EA will have more control of more racing games. And judging by what we have seen so far, I am a bit concerned that at least in getting these titles noticed, they are doing a poor job with it, which could lead to less of these games in the future with them selling poorly because of the mismanagement and lack of marketing. My hope is that EA changes directions, but I do not know if they have properly received the message, and I think this pattern will sadly continue. Despite EA's best efforts to not market this game well, Grid Legends is a really good racer and one of 2022's most overlooked titles. When it comes to modes and options, especially on the single player side of things, there's plenty to tweak, earn, and enjoy to keep you coming back to this title. Then you have the online modes, which will receive a boost with it coming to PS Plus for subscribers. Plus crossplay will hopefully keep the player count good for online players. And then you have the campaign that is an easy sell even to just casual racing fans. Yes, it is cheesy and does have a so bad it's good quality to some of the acting, but the production values are high, and on the entertainment side of things, it excels at being a really good time as you follow the race of these underdogs. Plus the blend of live action footage honestly gives me some fun nostalgia of the 90s, when this was blended into a bunch of games. Right now, the game is available on Game Pass Ultimate through EA Play. It's on May's PS Plus games for subscribers, and you can often find it pretty cheap if you're looking to own it outright. Whatever you do, I would recommend you check this one out. Have you played Grid Legends? How does it rank with the rest of the Grid series for you? Let me know your thoughts on it down below. If you're interested in being notified of new videos, please hit the subscribe button and bell. And if you would like to support the channel and get early access to content, please check out my Patreon. All of the links will be at the end of this video and within the description. And thank you very much for watching.